Hi Year 3, we are going to be doing a little science investigation today. This is one that you can really easily try at home as well. All you will need is a bowl with some water in it and a selection of small objects, and I would try and get some objects which have different sizes, different materials, different weights, different textures, so that you can test a range of objects. And also make sure they are things that you don't mind getting wet, because they are going to go in your bowl of water. So today we are going to be looking at another force. We're going to be looking at a force called upthrust. And to learn about upthrust, we're going to be doing a little investigation into which objects float and which objects sink. So I'm going to be popping these objects into my water to see whether they float or sink. Now if an object floats, we say that it is buoyant. It's showing us buoyancy. Okay, I've got here a small metal safety pin. I've got a metal key, a 1p coin, a match, a little rubber, and a leaf from a bunch of flowers as well. So I'm going to pop them all in one by one, and then I'm going to sort them into two groups of which ones float and which ones sink. Okay, before I do that, I want you to just have a quick look at my objects again. And I want you to have a think and make a quick prediction about which ones you think are going to float on the water and which ones you think are going to sink down to the bottom of the bowl. Okay, so I'm going to try my little metal paperclip, safety pin, sorry, first of all. So let's pop it into the bowl and see whether it floats or not. Okay, so you can see there that my safety pin is floating on the top of the water. So I'm going to make a little group here of objects that float. Okay, I'm going to go for the key next, metal key. Do we think it's going to float? Do we think it's going to sink? Let's try. Okay, that has sunk straight down to the bottom of the bowl there. So this can go in my group of objects which sink. Okay, next object. Let's do our leaf. What's your prediction? Do we think it's going to float or do we think it's going to sink? Let's have a look. Right, you can see there that the leaf is definitely floating, staying on the top of the surface of the water. So that can go into the same group as my safety pin. Okay, 3 objects left to test. I'm going to test the rubber, just like we would find in our classrooms. Do we think the rubber is going to float or do we think it's going to sink? Let's try. Okay, now that sank. It didn't sink quite as quickly as the metal key did, but it has definitely made its way to the bottom of the bowl of water. So the rubber is going to join the key in the group of objects that have sunk. Right, next one, I'm going to go for my 1p coin. See how thin it is. We all know how small they are. Do we think it's going to float? Do we think it's going to sink? Let's see. And that has sunk straight down to the bottom of the bowl of water there. So the 1p coin can also join the group of objects which sink. All right, our final object is the matchstick. Have a think. Do we think it's going to float or do we think it's going to sink? So matches are made out of a type of wood. Let's try it. Right, so my matchstick is floating on the surface of the water. So I'm going to pop that over here with the leaf and the safety pin. So there we have it. Those are my groups of objects. We have the group of objects which floated. We have the groups of objects which sunk. Now, if you're doing this at home, I want you to have a think about which objects you might choose to see if they float or sink, or I want you to be thinking about the objects that I have investigated And as you move on to your next task, you're going to be learning a little bit more about the science behind the forces that are in action when we see an object floating, much like the matchstick, or when we see an object sink, like the penny. Have fun!